Great to have with us from Tennessee's 7th Congressional District, the Chairman of Homeland Security, Congressman Mark Green. Hey, Congressman, how are you today?
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And, Congressman, a lot of ground to cover with you today. And this story out of Brownsville, this is insane that the agents are having to basically stave off these hordes of invaders.
Yeah, I mean, the cartels basically overwhelm a crossing site. This is their modus operandi. They overwhelm the crossing site. That requires Customs and Border Patrol to concentrate assets there, meaning they thin the line in between the ports of entry. And then, of course, the cartels come rushing across over there with their drugs and narcotics. What's fascinating is that the Secretary of Homeland Security said he wasn't even aware of that strategy. Crazy.
Well, you've been at the forefront of this, and there's so much crazy stuff happening down at the border. And I want you to tell our listeners about this app. And the cartels are actually exploiting this app, which is from a federal program that is meant for immigrants seeking admission into the country. What do they call it? The CBP-1 app.
Yeah, so that app was actually originally written for trucks that were hauling cargo into the United States. They would log that they were coming and basically book an appointment to pass through customs, have the vehicle inspected, and move on. It would speed the process of commerce between Mexico and the U.S., one of our greatest trading partners. So what Mayorkas did was turn that into a way to give automatic asylum if the migrant completed the app and arrived. They were essentially granted, and he refers to it as the legal pathway. It's absolutely illegal because the Congress decades ago passed the Immigration and Nationalization Act, which says exactly what's to happen with asylum, and that is a judicial process ultimately. And he's basically completely removed that and granting people automatic parole.
Now, it's my understanding, and this is from the Washington Examiner, they've done an investigation. They've determined that a lot of these cartels, these smugglers, are openly advertising their services on social media. Is that true?
Absolutely. And in fact, when he announced the CBP-1 app, we told him all that was going to happen. I think my exact words were a paid coyote is going to complete the form for extra money, for the migrant. And that's exactly what's happening. In fact, the cartels have set up a VPN that allows people to log into it without, once they pay, they get a code and they use the VPN and they're tracked throughout their, trek through Mexico and Central America. And then they get the app completed for them by the cartels. It's absolutely absurd. We told Mayorkas this would happen. Of course, telling Mayorkas that the sky is blue, doesn't seem to work for that guy. But, that's what they're doing.
So when it comes to Mayorkas, where are we at? I know people, have been wanting him impeached, held accountable. Where are we at in all of that, Congressman?
Well, the challenge for us is there are a couple of Republicans, and it's like 4 or 5. So it's a small number, but it's enough to keep us from getting him to, legal action. So what I am doing is taking a very methodical approach to investigating his failings. So there's job performance as well as some potential criminal activity that's happened. And as we go through it, we're communicating that to the American people, and hopefully we build a consensus and then can take a packet of, I think that the document's well over 150 pages now, but we assemble it as we go along. We're in phase 3 of 5 phases. On September the 13th, we'll have a hearing. Actually, I think Tim Ballard from Sound of Freedom is going to be at that hearing. If not that one, he'll be at another one. And it's to talk about the human cost of the open border. But, 5 phases, and we're going to put together a packet, hopefully convince those other Republicans and enough of the American people to actually take action against this guy. He's derelict in his duty, dishonest, lied to Congress, violated laws passed by Congress, basically ignored court rulings. I mean, I don't think he can be or should be the Secretary of Homeland Security, and a lot of people agree with me.
No, I think anybody with a functioning brain can see what's happening down there and realize this is horrible for our country. And again, a lot of the focus is on the people coming across. I think we should be more concerned about the amount of drugs that are coming across the border and the impact those are having in our communities.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the 2 years, 21 and 22, 107 and 109,000 dead. So 216,000 dead Americans in those 2 years. I mean, that's bigger than the city of Clarksville where I live. It's insane. And think too, I mean, I get the drugs, but also the human trafficking. I mean, the women who are sexually assaulted. They just broke up a prostitution ring in Houston of 20 young girls that had been brought over by the cartels. I mean, this is horrible. And it's a human tragedy of epic proportions that is facilitated by Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden.
Yesterday, we had Congressman Matt Rosendale on the show. He's back home on his ranch in Montana. And man, he was fighting mad about the Department of Education, the Biden administration, cutting funding for these hunting safety courses for kids. And I know this is a big deal for you as well.
Yeah, it impacts about 38,000 Tennessee students. It's ridiculous. You know, they hate everything gun. And what they can't realize and can't fathom that law-abiding citizens use guns for enjoyment. We use them for hunting and the heritage of hunting. I mean, I took my sons, bird hunting and duck hunting, and we love it. And teaching gun safety in schools is just a good idea. But these idiots, they are just like they cut funding, and I have a bill on that too. They cut Tennessee's Title X funding because we don't allow abortions in this state. Well, now they're cutting, funding for schools, archery programs, and hunting programs. And we're pushing back hard. In fact, I don't think I've gotten more national press on the Mayorkas stuff than I have on this. I think we're gonna wind up being an outdoor life. They called and asked for photos of my family hunting. So this has hit a nerve. And from Alaska to Maine to Florida, people are pissed about this, and they should be. It's an encroachment on federalism. The whole Department of Education in and of itself is just insane. And I will say, I had a conversation with Cameron Sexton the other day, and by golly, God bless him, he's planning for next Congress or next session of the General Assembly to just basically cut all federal funding from Washington for education. I think that's brilliant. The state needs to become less dependent on D.C. so we can just tell them to go pound sand, as we say in the Army.
I love this. And look, most southern states, Congressman, and you know this, the opening of deer season, that's a holiday. The kids are out of school because nobody shows up otherwise. They're all going to be at a deer stand
exactly
somewhere.
Right.
Wow. Are you getting any indication at all from the Department of Education why they did this? Have you gotten an explanation?
Well, the statements, I can only go with the statements that Biden has made. He's made very negative statements about hunting and archery and how, these are weapons and kids don't need to be taught how to use these, et cetera, et cetera. It's just the insanity with the anti-gun lobby. He's playing to his base, just trying to placate them. And a lot of people in the middle are pissed too on this one.
On the Patriot Mobile Newsmaker line right now, Congressman Mark Green from Tennessee. And Congressman, real quick here, I want you to weigh in on this FAA vote involving the pilots.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting when two conservative principles clash. It sort of reminded me of the vote I had in the state Senate when guns in parking lots, the person's Second Amendment right, I believed, trumped the property rights. But those are both conservative principles. In this case, I'm very anti-mandate. In fact, I passed the amendment that prevented soldiers from getting kicked out with a dishonorable discharge. I supported the amendments that reinstated them, but they're in the military. The amendment on the FAA Act was the federal government telling a private business you have to do X or Y, and I hate that. I think that's wrong. I don't want the camel's nose in the tent. Even Joe Biden knew he couldn't do that, so he did an end around and did a mandate with anybody who contracted with the United States government. So that's how they got to the pilots. And what's interesting is only United fired people of the big four airlines, and they hired back 2,000. So we're talking about they fired 2,200, they hired back 2,000. So we're talking 200 pilots. And the amendment was to say you had to hire them back, which I want them to hire them back, but I don't want the federal government telling a business how they have to administer hiring people. Because what happens is when government acts like that, it takes freedom from somebody. Now, there's a small business out there somewhere who's going to do something in the future. And when we open this door, we just said, okay, it's okay for the federal government to tell that business to do X and Y. You have to hire X percentage of people that are DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we can't let the camel's nose in the tent. So I voted no. I know Marjorie Taylor Greene, who brought that amendment, did so with a good intention. But again, the Constitution is clear, and we should not tell private businesses, how to run their business.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on this one, Congressman. And I know it's tough, but you've got to kind of peel back the layers of the onion to see what the real issue here is. Because I don't want the government. I'm a small business owner myself, and I don't want the government coming in and telling me how to run my business.
Right. I mean, I ran a couple of different small businesses, and, it's about freedom. Those pilots, and I hate what happened to them, and I don't, I very rarely fly United, and only when the government buys the ticket because of that. But I do fly another airline that chose not to do a mandate. And so let's let the market put the pressures on those guys.
That's it. All right. Well, Congressman.
That's freedom.
Yeah, it is freedom. All right, Congressman, we're going to leave it there. I got to make it up to Clarksville not only to visit with you, but I got to go to the new Buc-ee's you guys have up there.
Hey, come on up. Clarksville is a hidden gem. I mean, it's a great town, and it's funny. I'll talk to folks in Nashville, and they'll say they're coming up here, and someone will ask them, are you staying overnight? I'm like, no, it's 40 minutes. We're right up the road, and we've got great restaurants and and of course the military is building this massive museum there, the Wings of Liberty Museum, which is going to attract people from all over the country. So come to Clarksville.
Beautiful area. All right, Congressman, good having you on the show today.
See you.
All right, folks.
Take care.